Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning wherever you are. I am your host, Anna Clements, and this is Audiobooks with Anna. In this episode, we spoke to Hilary Huber, celebrated narrator and speaker at VO Atlanta. Hilary, how are you? What's the weather like where you are?
It's really cold. In fact, I just went outside I thought, I'm going to sit, I've been recording for an hour. I was like, great, I'll go sit outside in the sunshine for an hour. And I mean, okay, it's cold by LA standards, but I went out there and I was like, hell no, I'm going back in. So yeah, it's cold.
Hilary, let me take you back a second to the early days of Hilary Huber. Tell everybody, why audiobooks? How audiobooks?
It's a really direct route, actually. I had done commercial voiceover for about, I started doing it about 30 years ago, and it was great. It was incredible. That was back when all we really had, back in the caveman days, when there were, major networks, and that was kind of it. So when you booked one commercial, you knew you were going to make like 10 grand. A, because they'd only ran network, and B, commercials were really expensive to produce, and so they would run them for a long time. And now they don't. So it was a great time to be doing commercial voiceover, and I loved it. And I had an amazing agent, who I still have, and really incredible friends. But every day we would go into the agency, and you'd sit there, and the main agent, Jeff Danis, would come out, and he would hand you your copy. And then you'd wait to be called to go to the booth to audition, and you'd sit again, and you'd go. You were there for like over an hour chatting with probably the funniest people there were. And I would be sitting in the lobby holding my stack of copy, and there were a handful of older actresses. And I'd see them come in the door, and right away there was this palpable look of sort of desperation on their faces, and Jeff would hand them one piece of copy. And they would sit down and, wait to record their one piece of copy. They'd driven from God knows where to do this. And it really created it left an impression on me. They had aged out of the demographic, and don't tell me there's no ageism in voiceover, because there is. They had aged out of the demographic, and they were not being provided the opportunities that we younger actresses were being provided. And it just left such a strong impression. I thought, you know what? I got to pivot. I cannot rely on this forever, because that is what I will become. And so that was number one. And number two was kind of at the end of the day, it was great making a lot of money and bopping around town doing commercials. But was I really fulfilled slogging Slurpees? No, I wasn't. Certainly not as an actor. And so I just thought about what can I do forever? What's going to fulfill that sort of acting craving that I have? And it was audiobooks. And it was relatively, it wasn't a brand new endeavor at that point, but it wasn't something you talked about or heard about. And I went after Blackstone, actually, and I pitched a book. I pitched The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath.
Can I just stop you and query your...
Sorry, I get going, don't I? And I don't shut up.
No, it's fantastic. No, it's wonderful, because it's exactly what we're here for. Stories and you talking is exactly why we're here. But I'm really fascinated by that step you just slid into. And I'm sure it wasn't quite that simple, because A, how did you know who Blackstone was? And B, why did you think that just going up and saying, hey, here's a book, I could read this, was a good idea?
Yeah. I knew Pat Fraley, and I taught with him. We had the same agent, Nancy Wolfson, way back in the day. And he was my gateway into that. He was teaching classes on audiobooks, and I started helping him with those workshops. So it wasn't as simple as me coming up with this idea. I certainly made it sound like it was, didn't I? But it wasn't. And so I'm not that smart or that clever or that industrious. Yeah, so it was sort of my exposure to him that helped me think along those lines. Yeah, then I pitched a book, and there it went. It was a really different world then, and I hate to be that idiot. I say this all the time. Who's like, back in the day when we had to go, walk uphill both ways. But it really was. It was really hard to get to know producers and publishers.
Yeah.
You had to show up at APAC. It was the only opportunity to get to know any of them. If you managed to get an email address, it was like the holy grail. They were really hard to get a hold of, and you had to persevere. And I mean, you still have to persevere, and you still have to work hard to knock on those doors, but they were much more armored back then. And I really believe the pandemic changed that dramatically. Zoom, Clubhouse, Instagram, all these opportunities, now they're everywhere, and we have unbelievably unfettered access to them. And we need to really recognize how incredible that is.
Absolutely. I think things like this audio-only app, has been a godsend to freelancers, just being able to find people on podcasts and on interviews, find out more about them. And usually at the end of every one of those, there's how can people reach you? And, there's that sense of...
They're readily giving out their email addresses,
very much so.
It's incredible.
So we're going to get to COVID and how it's affected everybody's sort of coaching and conferences. But talk to me about your first panel. There must have been a time where after a while people recognized that you'd been in the business long enough and you knew what you were talking about. And I'm assuming you got invited along to chat in front of people. Do you remember your first panel?
No, I don't remember my very first panel, but I can remember where it was.
Okay.
I'm sure it was at APAC. I've been going to APAC for a really long time. Back when, there was always a narrator track, but it was nothing like it is today. There were not a ton of us, because there weren't a ton of us doing this work. So it was no doubt at APAC, and I was no doubt nervous as all get out. I always am when I'm sitting up on a panel like that. I become a basket case. Yeah, and it just kind of snowballed. Then I got invited to talk on more panels, and then I got invited to Ohio for a voiceover conference, and I don't know, it just kind of took on a life of its own. The coaching and stuff. So I like it. I really like to interact with people. I like to share information. I like to compare information. We all have different ways to get to the same outcome, and I think it's really interesting to hear other people's takes on things. I'm inquisitive, so I like to hear what other people are about. So I love a panel for that reason. I love it when we disagree with each other.
Yes.
Not disagree, but, I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. And curiosity is such an important part of the creative industry that actually I think being curious is a really good starting point and a great place to be if you are wonderful with regards to talking and telling stories, and ultimately that's what panels are about. People want you to have an opinion and to share it, which is a great thing. Coming on then to Barbara in the chat says she's seen you on panels, Hilary, and you are as cool as a cucumber. Your nerves are very well hidden.
Oh, that's the Xanax. No, I'm just kidding. I don't take a Xanax. I'd fall asleep, but...
So talk to us specifically then about VO Atlanta. Have you been before?
I have never been in person. I've never been in person to VO Atlanta. I did an X session smack in the middle of COVID, the same one I'm actually doing this time. And I'm like a 5-year-old. I'm so giddy with excitement over this thing. I can't even believe it. That happened mostly because I looked, after I'd been invited to join, I looked at the speakers list, and like a big chunk of my old VO friends are going to be there. My very first agent, Jeff Howell's going to be there, and Scott Parkin and Malik Berger, and I think is Lori going to be there? Lori Allen? I mean, so many, I can't even believe it. A lot of us had the same agent. And we were a really tight community. We all saw each other all over town at auditions and at bookings and stuff. And I haven't seen them, since before the pandemic, because we're not going into any agencies anymore. So I'm deliriously excited about that. And then I'm deliriously excited about all of the offerings. I guess historically, the audiobook program has been a separate ticket. And so for the first year ever, they have folded the audiobook programming into the whole conference programming, which I think is amazing, because this will allow people who are working in other disciplines of voiceover to pop in on our panels.
Absolutely.
and see what this is all about. And I just think, and likewise for us, I'm going to pop into a bunch of my friends' panels too. Actually, one of my current agents is going to be there too, Vince Levica, Terry Burland, all these casting people I used to work with. So it's super exciting. I'm really excited. There's so much stuff. I want to sign up for all these X sessions, but unfortunately they conflict with a lot of the panels we're doing. But there's some great stuff there. So I sort of have this two-pronged attack right now. I want to encourage those in other areas of voiceover to come experience the audiobook offerings, but I want the audiobook people to walk around and experience some of these other offerings too. So I'm hoping to. I keep saying I'm excited to cross the aisle.
Yes, I've been sharing for some time that I think that the feeling of corporate narration, e-learning, and into audiobooks have very similar styles, that longer form narration.
Yeah.
If that's the sort of thing you like, you should be stepping into this. So I'm the same. I've signed up for everybody in the room. I've put at the top of the room, if you pull to refresh, so swipe down on your screen, you should see a link at the top of the room for the speaker schedule flip book from VO Atlanta, which is really, really, really hard to read.
It's so hard to read.
Mostly because there is so much on it. And the very first day is the Thursday afternoon. There's several X sessions going on, most of the audiobook ones. And then that evening is the exhibition hall opening and the opening session of the conference itself. And then it runs all day Friday, all day Saturday. And then Sunday, there's more X sessions and the closing session. But all day Friday and Saturday are the breakout sessions. So that's the differentiation at VO Atlanta. There are breakout sessions, which means that there is a room that anybody can walk into where people will be speaking. So whether they're giving a TED Talk style talk or it's a panel of maybe 5 or 6 people being hosted by someone having a discussion, you can step in and out of those rooms. And then the X sessions are for a very exclusive group of 10 or 12 people who will have basically 3 hours of that expert's time. And the lovely thing about VO Atlanta is that you can sign up for X sessions without signing up for the conference. You can sign up for the conference.
No, you can't. You can't do that,
Oh.
Actually. You have to sign up for the conference to access the X sessions. I found
that must have
that
been
out in a
only,
session
perhaps.
yesterday. Yeah, and by the way, Jessica has raised her hand. Jessica and Lynn are here from the VO Atlanta juggernaut, and so they can answer some questions too. I know Jessica has her hand raised right now. So hi, Jessica. Thanks, you guys, for showing up. It's great.
Also, if you press on the schedule, the link I put up, there is Lynn has just mentioned, there is a much more pleasant to read version that's on an Excel spreadsheet. So you can separate out the days, the X sessions, the kids sessions, and everything else and you can actually zoom in and work out. So I've had to use 3 colored highlighters to work out the things I have to be at, the things I want to be at, and the things I would be at if I wasn't already somewhere else.
It's so good. That's so, no, there's so much. It's like eye candy.
Yeah. Fantastic. We've been joined by Isaac and Jessica. Bear with us, Jessica, while we check in with Isaac to say hello. Welcome. Share your thoughts.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm appreciative of the insight that Hillary has offered so far. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
I was just wondering, I went to VO Atlanta last year, and I plan on doing APAC this year. But, for those of us who have to make a value decision choosing between APAC or VO Atlanta, do you know if you could say you get more value out of one versus the other, or is it different strokes for different folks?
I'll hit that if you don't mind, Anna.
Thank you.
I think it's the same strokes for all the folks. I think it really depends on how you want to focus and how pinpoint you want that focus to be. So by going to APAC, you are surrounding yourself with the audiobook community. You are having an opportunity to be in front of pretty much, well, not all, but a very large number of producers and publishers, your client, which is unbelievably valuable. By going to VO Atlanta, you're acknowledging that there is more than just audiobooks. And I think that we all know that. It's hard as performers to wear just one hat these days. And just like my origin story, I knew I had to think beyond commercial VO. And so I think that by going to VO Atlanta, you are really looking at your career as a whole and determining how you can maximize all the different areas that you can lend your voice and your microphone to. So both are unbelievably valuable. One is a long shot, one is a close-up.
Okay, that's great information.
Yeah, I just came up with that right now. There you go.
That's a quote. There needs to be a meme of that.
I mean, it's a beatdown cost-wise. These things are expensive, but I mean, I know people who are going to both. Then that's some deep pockets. But you know, I think about this all the time, having done voiceover for so long. How many times have I heard, you know, the guy next to me watching our sons play baseball say, "Yeah, I'm a lawyer. I thought I'd do some voiceover in my free time." And I'm like, F you. I mean, in your free time, are you kidding me? I think I'll go step up to the bar and argue a case in my free time. You know, they don't value the fact that we put a lot of education into what we do, just like they put a lot of education into what they do. He went to law school for 2 years. You know, we study for years. So you have to value that education. Education is important to what we do. Just like it's important to being a lawyer, being a doctor, whatever, even, you know, being a contractor. You need to educate yourself on load-bearing weight and measurements and things I don't know anything about. So I think that anybody who thinks they can just jump into this profession, I think that's being really short-sighted. I'm not opinionated at all either.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that, Hillary.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Filling in from my point of view, Isaac, I think it's about focusing your attention. So if you're at VO Atlanta, it may well be about getting into as many sessions as you can with regards to audiobooks, but as Hillary mentioned, also looking into what else is available with regards to perhaps medical narration, e-learning. There are so many people at the conference that if you wanted to find out more about other genres, VO Atlanta is the place to be. If you're going to APAC, you need to be focusing in on who you're looking to meet, what it is you're looking to say to the industry about yourself, and ensuring that you're going to get the best out of the time you're in New York. So I don't think you need to do both. I don't think you need to do either, but you do need to decide what your marketing strategy is and how you're looking to say hello to the industry, if that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you.
Lovely. Jessica, thank you very, very much for joining us up here on the sofa. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Hi, Jessica.
I heard you and Hillary were with Lynn Norris yesterday here on Clubhouse. I don't know if anybody else is listening into any and every room that they can, which I am, about VO Atlanta. So yeah, I forget now what we were querying, Hillary, when we invited Jessica up.
Well, I had raised my hand. I think that's why.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you bet. So I was just going to mention some things about the schedule so that folks had kind of some tips and tricks. And kind of like Lynn mentioned and I mentioned in the comments, there is the Excel file that's on the same page as the flipbook schedule. And it's just a button that's right above the schedule. And if you click that button, it's going to go ahead and pull that up into your browser window and give you the option to download it. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend downloading it unless you can either like rename it with a date, you know, to say what date you got it, because the schedule is still changing. There are people who may have to, not attend for some reason, or there could be a change to the schedule because something didn't quite work out the way we thought it was. So that's a little bit of a living, breathing document that gets updated. We try to get it updated once a week, but just to sort of, I guess, explain, put it into perspective, the amount of work that it takes to make one change on the schedule is about 8 to 10 steps, because there's changing the sheet that it lives in, and then converting it into a table in another type of program to make it work within the website and make it look nice for the flipbook. And then you have to do some manual process to get everything lined up. And that's so that, that flipbook looks nice and you don't just have a big glaring Excel sheet in the middle of a really nice looking web page. And then on top of that, of course, there's updating the Excel file that populates onto the website. There's also the printed guide that will be printed and given to everybody, and a schedule that will be printed and given to everybody at the conference that has to be updated, as well as a couple of little tables within those printed guides where everything has to be changed. So don't download that thing unless you know that you're going to keep track of what version you're looking at, just in case there's changes.
I was writing out and rewriting all sorts of things already and had no concept of the idea that it was a moving target, as it were. So I will let you be for a good couple of months yet. It's a while
well,
away,
and
isn't it?
You could certainly, like, something that's happening too is every time there's an update to the schedule, there's a post in the attendee Facebook group. So if you're not already part of the attendee Facebook group, request to be admitted. And that's where some of the notifications about stuff like schedule changes. When the schedule gets updated and a new version is online, then we put that in the Facebook group so that folks know. But that Excel version, it lives there, so it is a little bit easier to navigate. But we also had to do something that looked nicer so that you didn't just have this big glaring thing on the page. And then another tip that I thought I would give everybody too is if you're looking for something specific or a specific person or a keyword or something within that Excel document or sheet, if you use the Control F function, just like you would in the programs when they're outside of the website, you can search for things, and that's really helpful. But one thing that I found in trying to use it myself, because I use it all the time, is that the Control F doesn't necessarily work across the entire workbook. You have to do that in each tab on the workbook. So if it says, it couldn't find it, check the other tabs too. It might be there.
Thank you. You sound like you're losing your voice, Jessica. You've been doing too many.
This is me getting my voice back. I've been without my voice for about 3 weeks.
Yipes.
Which is terrible for voiceover,
No kidding.
Well, thank you very much for coming up and being on the sofa. Do stay with us, Jessica, because I'm sure there'll be some questions, if nothing else, about the nightmare that is maintaining a spreadsheet while all this is going on. So thank you very much.
Right. Yeah.
These girls are working double time, boy. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And Lynn, thank you very much for coming up and sitting on the sofa with us. How are you?
I'm well. It's really nice to be here. Thanks, Anna and Hillary, for inviting me, and great to see you, quote unquote, again. I just wanted to add that while the schedule is changing, once we get a little closer to publication date, which we're kind of in crunch mode for now, but once things go to printers and start to get ready for pretty versions, physical versions to be handed to you when you get there, once that happens, the schedule will be less in flux. We'll certainly make all those announcements too. And I don't want you to think we're not moving things around like a big giant chessboard. If panels are in the same rooms, for the most part, we had to do some room adjustments. But if you thought that an animation class was at 10 o'clock in a particular room, it likely still is there. The changes we're talking about are some of the X sessions and additional breakouts that are still being talked about, and adding panelists and things like that. So it's not so much in flux that you can't make a general plan. But my piece of advice to anybody who's coming, if you haven't been before or have only come a couple of times, what I have found in my personal experience, and I've gone to 9 out of 10 of them, is that I make a plan, and maybe I make a plan B as well, and then neither one of those plans is what actually happens when I get there, because you'll see friends who want to go see that breakout that you hadn't thought about, and every one of the breakouts, none of the X sessions, so those are separate, but breakouts and panels, all of the main general conference content, and also not the children's program, but general adult conference content, will be recorded and available to you with your ticket. So once it gets done after the conference. So don't feel FOMO. If you think you're going to miss something, I promise you're not. It'll be a recording. You can see it later. So the plan doesn't have to be quite as fraught. That's my piece of advice. So have a general plan, sure, but don't fret. You'll be able to watch all the breakouts or panels that you want to later.
Thank you very much for that. And worth knowing. So it's lovely, A, to know that there's a physical copy coming, B, that there is a cutoff date to all the changes you're having to make, C, that there's a Facebook group you can join, which I was unaware of despite having attended before. So the Facebook VO Atlanta attendees group is the place to be for any further information on that. And a thank you to you both for all of the effort that must go into this, because it feels like it must be a huge undertaking. And I know it's not something that I would personally be wanting to undertake. So well done. just confirming then with Marcus, Hillary's already said yes in the chat, but Marcus queried about whether the audiobook focused sessions are part of the general admission instead of separate this year, because they used to be on a separate ticket, and they are, which is super exciting. Can either of you speak to how and why that came to? I know J. Michael Collins and we had Anna on a couple of weeks back talking about the event itself and kind of organizing it and so on. But really what that means, whether that's just more of a juggle for you or what it really means and how it came about.
Oh, I can take that. I think the intention of it, and with Scott Brick kind of curating all the content for the audiobook portions of the general conference, and working really closely with JMC, I think the real intention was that that none of us, I narrate audiobooks as well, we're not a silo. We're not some weird separate corner that doesn't exist in the world. To Hillary's point earlier, we're all voiceover actors. It's just another genre, like gaming, animation, corporate, as you've both said. So I think the intention really was to bring it back in, to make sure that people who don't normally get exposed to audiobook content can have a chance to meet these great teachers and find out some cool stuff about this genre. And also for people who would normally have to make a decision to only see audiobook content because that's their main focus, that they don't miss out. And I think that was really the intent. There is at least one audiobook and also one Spanish program in almost every hour of the conference. There is at least one thing that is specifically either part of the Spanish program or part of the audiobook program. And I say program, but I just mean those were specially curated content subsections of all of the general conference. So it's not a different track. We're all mixing together in the same spaces. So, but there is also Spanish programs that will be presented in Spanish for those Spanish-speaking voiceover people as well. So, but then they're also not siloed. They can come to anything. If you speak Spanish, but you don't normally do Spanish voiceover, but you're interested, please go to one. That's kind of the intention of the whole conference, is that we're all one big community.
That's brilliant, Lynn. Thank you. And can I ask both of you, I'm assuming, sorry, I don't know whether last year VO Atlanta was in person or online, but I'm wondering how excited you are about attending this year, I'm assuming you've both been before.
Yes, it was in person, and it was the last year that Gerald Griffith was presenting it and was the executive director. He was retiring from that, and VO Atlanta was going to be no more. And then J. Michael Collins and Anna Collins. Anna Collins runs ACE events, so she does some other conference events in the VO industry already anyway, and they couldn't let it die. It's too important a conference. It means too much to the community. It means too much to them to just see it end. So that's why they purchased it. So I have been able to go to a couple conferences and have been super excited to see and reconnect with people after so many years of seeing their face on Zoom. But I think the additional excitement here is it's kind of a new taking over. I don't want to say a new era in that to disparage Gerald in any way. It's just under new management. And so they're working hard to make sure that it's just the next step up and that we listen to what people are asking for. We have all kinds of extra events. There will be some lounges where people can go if they're feeling a little overwhelmed. I'll let Jessica speak to how many attendees are coming, but it's pretty big. We have that put in place. We have a headshot photographer who will be available for the entire conference Thursday to Sunday. It's on a first come, first serve basis. So if you need a professional headshot, bring a nice top and come get it done. He's offering an incredible price. It's $75. You'll get 2 professionally produced headshots for your business. It's normally something like $500. So it's a very, very incredible deal. Only good during the conference for people there who are attending in person. But we have some stuff like that. So I think people will be excited to see what's coming and the improvements or the changes that have been made. So that's what I'm excited about. And I'll stop rambling and let Jessica talk.
I must just comment that Anna, when she was here, was telling us that basically they had undertaken a lot of feedback as well in between. So as you were saying, it's not a takeover after Gerald. It's almost more of a year on year, every conference gets better and better because of being able to hear what people have to say. And she mentioned that there will be coffee available at all times, which I was absolutely thrilled to hear.
Yeah. Golly, I lost my train of thought. No, because I was like listening so closely. I was like, oh, what was she saying? But yeah, no, that's absolutely right. They did, when they purchased the conference, they took the opportunity to listen to feedback from people who had attended the conference in previous years to find out, what works, what could use improvement, that sort of thing. And one of the areas that was huge was the coffee. So they made sure that there's going to be coffee, tea, and water throughout the day. We've got 5 coffee, tea, and water stations throughout the conference area so that folks can get something to drink during the conference. Let's see here. Oh, and the lounges. Yeah, there's 3 lounges. So there's going to be... I've been to the location once. I have never been to VO Atlanta. Talk about your trial by fire. So the one of the lounges is going to be in the little space that's between the Grand Salon and the Chattahoochee Salon. So where the main stage stuff is happening and where the exhibitor hall is, there's going to be some seating in there, some tables, some high tables and chairs, and places to charge your devices and just chill for a while. There's also going to be a lounge area in the exhibitor hall. So if folks need to do something, say like our exhibitors, need to go and have a little sidebar with somebody in the lounge, they can. Or if they need to take a quick Zoom meeting and get away from their booth, they can. But that's also a good place for others to just relax and hang out. And then down at the other side of the meeting area in the Hilton, there's another lounge that we're calling the Quiet Lounge. Kind of in the back room, we call it the Quiet Lounge. We don't know if it'll actually be quiet or not, but it tends to be a little quieter in that area in our minds because it's down by Sinclair Amphitheater entrance where there's a little less hustle and bustle since it's not in the promenade and that sort of thing. So there's some couches and we're adding that are already there from the hotel, and then we're adding some additional furniture, table, chairs, chargers, that sort of thing to make it a little bit more comfortable and inviting. And Anna decided that she wanted to do that because she had noticed in previous years that there was some furniture that was available that wasn't in use in some of the rooms, but it was not very much. And so she found people sitting on the floor plugged into a charger on their phone and that sort of thing. So she wanted to find a way to make the space more comfortable and inviting and encourage people to sit and enjoy each other's company.
Yeah, it really feels like she's listened as well, that like they have all, you have all undertaken the things that people have said year on year and, shifted with it and changed with it. And I think my take from, it's been a while, 3 years now since I've been to a conference, but my memory is mostly of losing my voice despite what we do for a living. It's mostly about raising your voice above everybody else's and that idea of a crowd. And you're so super excited to see everybody, as Hilary mentioned at the beginning. So the idea of some quiet spaces where there might actually be some downtime, particularly for the more introverted people who perhaps are very capable of being in those crowds and then just need some time away. So it'll be lovely that there's that idea of having that space.
I'm planning to go to my room and nap.
I've been known to do that as well, Hilary. I would also say, as far as masking or worried about health, you brought up losing your voice. I always came home with conference crud, and that was way pre-COVID. So I'm not talking about getting COVID necessarily, but I always came home with a cold or some sort of throat infection. So I am going to continue to wear my mask. So if you're worried about masks or feeling a little awkward, should you still wear one, but you kind of want to, but you're not sure if anyone else will, I will. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, come find me. We'll stand together and be uncomfortable. But if you don't want to wear a mask, you're not required to. The conference isn't requiring that of anyone. So just do whatever you feel the most comfortable doing. And if that is continuing to wear a mask, then please, by all means, wear a mask.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm just going to do a quick room recap because we've got 20 minutes left here. If there's anybody in the audience that'd like to come up and has a question they want to ask or doesn't want to come up, please feel free to put it in the chat. Happy to read those out loud. And now that you're up here, ladies, I'm going to take advantage of everybody. But Hilary, I was going to ask you thoughts with regards to early undertakers of the industry, so to speak. How do panels and breakout sessions help people?
God, I mean, I'll just go back to what I said in the beginning. Information, opinions, different perspectives. I use Pro Tools all the time as an example. If you ask 8 engineers, how do you consolidate a file on Pro Tools? You're going to get 8 different answers. None of them are wrong. They're all right. They're all just different. So I just love the opportunity that a panel provides because it's a panoply of people. That's a lot of alliteration. A panoply of people on a panel providing pointers. That was pretty good. You guys can quote that. Panoply of people on a panel pointing, whatever. Okay.
You can have to get it printed on a T-shirt.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's just beneficial. And I also think the magic really happens in between the panels when you can talk to people in the halls. That's always my favorite time is, listening to something somebody says and then touching upon it again when you see them later. I always advise all of my students, I say, when you go to these things, take notes. Obviously, you're going to take notes, but really take notes of something that everybody on that panel said so that when you email them, not right after the conference, but the following week, if you get what I'm saying, you have something to refer to. And it could be about something professional, a professional advice they gave you. It could be about their dog. Oh my God, I have the same kind of dog. I love that you talked about your dog on that panel. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, hire me. Just something personal that showed that you were listening. So that's my advice. I
love the "Hey, hire me" at the end. That was very good.
Yeah, well, you gotta get in there somewhere, right?
We talk a lot in this room. On the weeks that we don't have specific people being interviewed, we do a audiobook narrators assemble, and we talk about anything and everything. And often the conversation comes up about the fact that there are different times in your life and in your career where you'll hear exactly the same thing being said by a 4th or 5th person, and suddenly you go, oh. And it's almost like the timing has to be right. I feel like panels are really about the opportunity to hear, as you say, so many people saying the same thing from their point of view. And at some point, it's going to hit home with you, which is wonderful.
Totally.
We've got some people commenting in the chat. Jen Greenfield very kindly says if anybody wants to connect with her, feel free to message her. Jen, I will be searching you out, if only to say hello, but that's very kind. Somebody's asked if PANA has a panel for pointers. I'm not sure they do, but we can always ask them.
There's going to be one next week, I think, on APAC, on how to navigate
cool.
APAC.
Excellent.
So the same kind of thing applies,
Yes. So and do keep a lookout, particularly here on Clubhouse, but also on Discord. People are doing Zoom sessions. You just have to keep your eyes out because it's being talked about a lot at the moment, whether it's via Atlanta or APAC or, online things. You do need to just pay attention to the social media world and check in with all the things that are happening because there is a lot going on. I have run out for a second of things to say.
I was just going to add, if I might, Anna, that
Please.
If you do the math on the cost of going to a conference, add it all up, the hotel, the travel, the cost of the ticket, I don't think you find a better deal for the amount of information that you'll be exposed to and the opportunity to meet in person the people like Hillary who are teaching and giving you, hours and hours and hours, days of their time. I don't think you find a better deal. I think it's pennies per, experience that you're spending to get this. I don't know that you can go in, if you walk into a panel, you get an hour to hear the, 4 or 5 people with incredible expertise giving you information. And or if you go to a breakout, you get an hour of their time, or an X session, which is even more intense, 3 hours. But then it's almost, depending on what they're working with, it's such a small group that you really get some one-on-one time to work with them. And I don't think you find that anywhere else other than conferences. So I feel like it's always a really good investment, even though it might feel overwhelming. There's a lot of costs associated sometimes with coming to conferences, but it's such an incredible experience to get close, have a drink with somebody, talk about their dog, and and just find out who they are as humans, because you're
Absolutely.
way more likely to be hired by humans. So
I'm putting that on a T-shirt. Can I ask, we mentioned at the beginning that I said that the guide had very tiny writing, but mostly it's because there is so much going on. The schedule that again is pinned at the top of the room here, there are 9 different halls with stuff going on all the time. From 9 a.m. through till, well, goodness knows what time after hours script reading will finish. But there is a lot of sort of evening entertainment and ongoing things. Anna mentioned there would be sessions for board games for people who wanted to do something totally unvoice related. So that there is just so much going on. I think that's the reason why the schedule feels a little overwhelming at first, just because there is so much to take advantage of. And I had to sit down for a good couple of hours and kind of pay attention to how it worked, what it means, what's available, what I was interested in. And as I mentioned, I've highlighted what I have to be at, what I want to be at, and what I would be at if I wasn't at everything else. Because as you mentioned, there is a tendency when you get to the conference for those hallway conversations, and suddenly, 10 minutes have gone by and you realize you didn't go into the room because you're having a much more interesting conversation with your new best friend. So it's a fascinating, conferences in and of themselves are a wonderful place to be. Lynn or Jessica, can I ask if there's a cutoff date for buying a ticket or a numbers? Is there a maximum number?
I could take this one. So I can tell you where we're at on tickets. We just surpassed 550 registered attendees for the in-person conference. If you add our presenters and our sponsors and exhibitors and staff and volunteers and things like that, the number's well over 650 at this point. If we get up to 800 people, we're going to be so bursting at the seams that we won't have anywhere to stand. So we are watching the numbers very closely. I would definitely recommend getting your ticket sooner than later so that we can kind of know that. And also, if you're looking to reserve a hotel room, we've got some links that we can provide for our room blocks at the discounted rate. Those links expire like tomorrow because they have to be given back to the hotel a month ahead of time. So that if they need those rooms for people to book, they can have them.
That doesn't mean that you can't get a room. It just means you can't get a room at the conference rate.
Yeah. It's just we've negotiated lower rates, so there will be rooms available that you can book at the different hotels. Now, there are some of the hotels that are close to the Hilton that are getting very close to being sold out, but there's also a lot of hotels that are close to the Hilton that you can get rooms at. So.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. I must just, before I introduce Jen, give us a shout out to Laurie Allen. I apologize for shouting you out at the bottom of the audience there. Hi. Hillary is desperate to know if you're going to be there. Oh, she's coming up to join us. Well, while she joins us, Jen, welcome up to the sofa. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your very kind offer of being a friend to anybody who needs a friend.
Well, and I can connect people with friends. If I'm not the right friend for you, I know a lot of people, and I have a lot of volunteers who would love to connect with other people who feel maybe a little uncertain. All I wanted to say, I have been to a VO Atlanta. And yes, it's a lot and there's a lot of people, but you guys set me up perfectly. And someone in the chat did as well to say those side hallway conversations are so amazing. And they are. And so what I want to, now that we're about 4 weeks out, think about business cards. Now, I know this can be like a hot topic for some people, but I, as a super duper social person, 100% believe in them and I encourage them. Let me clarify, not to bother casting directors or coaches or, to bombard people, but for building your community, finding your booth besties, those hallway conversations. Hey, do you want to meet later? Man, I wish I could say I was wonderful with names. I'm great with faces, so I recommend a business card that has your face on it too and your phone number, because I want to text you and be like, hey, let's meet at the dance later, or we'll meet at the bar for the drink, or what time are you having breakfast? The other thing I would say, because when I was in Dallas at the One Voice conference, I had 2 opportunities this happened, is to remind you that it's not just voice actors who are staying in this hotel. That 2 instances that I can name where I'm either in an elevator or we were, waiting in line at Starbucks. It's not just VO, and especially for voice actors, we're always trying to network and build relationships. So don't miss an opportunity if you meet someone who's not part of the conference to be able to share your information with them. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Jen. Thank you. It's a great piece of Lynn is saying in the chat, please don't hand your cards to casting people unless specifically asked, but for colleagues, sure. And Barbara says, digital or printed business cards? There's a whole nother conversation.
I can take that one. I was just going to say, like what I've advised in the clubhouse that we had the other day is that you can do digital or you can do printed or you can do both if you want to. Some people prefer a printed business card. Some people prefer to have their information digitally. But I was just thinking that to sort of add to what Lynn was saying in the chat about don't just give your business cards to somebody unless they ask for it. I would wholeheartedly agree with that, because especially with your casting directors and agents and things like that, I mean, they're people too. They want to network. They want to have a good time. They want to be able to learn and share their knowledge. They don't want to feel like the only reason that you're talking to them is because you're trying to sell yourself to them and shove a business card in their face. So just be considerate. And if it's something where it's like, well, you know, would you like my business card or something like that? If it comes up in conversation, then great. But don't force your business cards or your electronic business cards on folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing I would like to add to that is I experienced people, and this is wonderful, again, in theory. Again, if you're not a person who can remember people's names, I had people that would do the dot and they would do the digital thing, but understand that it just goes into your contacts. And if you don't remember their name, they are now in the black hole of your contact list. And again, I'm talking about colleague to colleague. Now, I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about building your own personal, maybe accountability group or people you want to get to know better in the community. But if you don't know their name, the digital thing for me worked against me, because I literally, and if you have like, I don't know, a drink or three, there's a chance you really won't remember their name. And once all their information goes into your contact list, you can't find them again because there's not like a picture and always associated with it. And that's all. Thank you.
Absolutely. And meanwhile, Laurie Allen, thank you very, very much for joining us on the
Laurie! I miss you.
There's a microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you press on it,
I'll
you
just
should
keep
be
talking at you until you
God,
find it.
there you go.
Oh my God. Hi.
Oh my God. Good morning.
Oh my God. Good morning.
I have had one too many cups of coffee. Actually, no, I have not. Just 1 1/4, but who's counting? Hi, everybody. I wholeheartedly agree that having a business card with your picture on it is super fun. The digital thing for me, like, who gave one to me? I think it was like my orthopedist, and I was like, I don't know where the hell that was. You know what I mean? I have to scroll 72 pages down or up in my photos. But at any rate, this is such a lovely place to say hi, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. And I think there's maybe a spot or two, but yeah, it's going to be a lot of people. So I'm that crazy cautious person that will probably still wear a mask here and there, and then probably say and see you at the bar. But at any rate, I'm excited myself to pop into other sessions. That's the beauty of being able to really spend your time wisely, you know, and make sure you get out of the hotel and take a walk. Because, you know, these things are they're very stimulating, you know what I mean? Like, in the best way. But you want to remember and let things, like, you know, go take a walk on your lunch break or whatever. So you can just let things settle in your body, because these conventions and stuff can be really delightfully stimulating, which is what we're there for.
The information sometimes needs to percolate, doesn't it? You have to give yourself the 10 minutes off just to assimilate the information, because it is a lot, isn't it? It can be overwhelming.
I couldn't agree more. And I get overwhelmed easily. But so it's good for me to sort of like walk away sometimes. And yeah, I feel like if someone has asked, I know I'm not in a position to cast anyone. I'm in a position to coach and mentor and help and say hello. But when people just come up and say hi and just hand me a card, I'm just like, ugh. Because I'm like, I get like, I don't know what to do for you. You know what I mean? Like, especially the agents, if you've had a meaningful connection and someone, you know, you can ask them, I think it's always really good advice to say, what's the best way? May I follow up with you? And what's the best? May I follow up with you? And what's a way to do that you prefer? Not what's the best way. I'd like to follow up with you. Thank you so much. Always lead with gratitude. Thank you so much. It was really super insightful and helpful. And I'd like to stay in touch. What's the best way to do that for you? Or, what's a way I can do that with you? And then you're being respectful and leading with kindness and brevity, something I'm not always great at. But yeah, right? So, and saying thank you. And like I just taught a big class over this weekend, and I had 2 very brief thank yous that were lovely, So just a nice thank you so much. It was lovely to meet you. One marketing thing that I think is really special without being cheesy and gross is, remembering like plus it helps you remember, like something helpful that they said, like, oh yeah, you talked about, making sure you're talking to somebody before you start talking, leading yourself in, having a very specific person that you're talking to in the booth and not talking beyond the microphone. Whatever it is, you can say, hey, that tip, that thing you said, fill in the blank, was really helpful. Here's to your health and a prosperous, future, whatever. It's like, I think that's a personal way to follow up with somebody. And I know I'm excited to be there and play. And what else? I know there's other groups. So this is you'll have to forgive me because I saw this and I was like, Hillary Huber, who I have known for such a long time. Hi.
Well, we opened the room with Hillary commenting that she was really looking forward to meeting up with lots of people. And then she hesitated because she wasn't sure if you were going to be there. So I personally am already
Drop your name.
that we have connected the 2 of you and you will be meeting up at VO Atlanta. So that's brilliant.
Yay. I'm excited. My, I think I stayed, hi, lovely Jessica, sweet angel of all things wonderful and generous and helpful. Jessica was, when we had to pick our hotel room, and I decided to go across the street because I thought that would remind me to go and relax every now and again, because these things, as I said, get overwhelming in a good way. And there's a hot tub. So that'll keep me away from the bar at all hours, is to go and remind myself to relax. Seriously, you know how these things, you come home and you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm jet lagged. It's a lot. So, so take good care of yourself.
Thank you.
During this time.
Absolutely. Jessica, do you want to say out loud what you're trying to write in the chat?
Yes, it would probably work better. I can't type, apparently. I was just saying that with as many attendees as we are going to have, we have decided that we are going to, now the lunch hour, the hour that everybody has off together, where there are no panels, sessions, anything going on, from noon to 12:50. I guess it's not a lunch hour, it's a lunch 50 minutes. But anyway, that thing is still happening like that. That's the only time, for lunch where there's going to be nothing happening. But if you would like to come and grab lunch a little sooner or a little later than that time, we've decided to extend the period that lunch will be available, the buffet lunch that you get as part of your ticket, from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. so that there's 2 hours to try to get everybody through that buffet line that wants to have lunch instead of just one, so that folks aren't having to scramble as much.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you in advance for all of this anticipatory planning, because getting that many people fed, I imagine, is quite a feat. So again, thank you. And thank you to all of you for joining us. Hillary, last thoughts. I'm aware that your X session is on the opening Thursday from 12 till 3, and you're going to be talking about crafting your killer audiobook demo.
I am.
Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Obviously demos are so important. It's your calling card, speaking of business cards. And the great thing about audiobook demos is that you can make them yourself. They don't require fancy sound beds and tricky engineering. You just need to know what to put on there. And I have interviewed almost every producer and publisher there is, and I know what they want. So that is the knowledge I'm going to be imparting. We're going to talk about how to choose the excerpts, how to edit them, how to make them sing, how to put your best foot forward. So theoretically, you can go off and make your own demo. You could always hire me to do it too, but you can do it on your own. So I think it's a really fun thing to talk about. So I'm psyched.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you very, very much for joining us. I'm just going to take advantage. And, no, thank you. And do come back again anytime.
I hope you enjoyed these thoughts on how to put your best foot forward at a conference. Thank you very much for listening in and joining us on this podcast. Do remember to like and subscribe. I have been your host, Anna Clements. Further details are in the show notes, and if you'd like to work with me or any further information, do get in touch. Thank you for listening.